We're starting another Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeffrey Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And as always, we discuss the noteworthy events of the week. And Dr. Lopkin, there's certainly some, I think, of two big things in the news. That is the Korean situation with the hostage and the impending summit, if you will. And then the Stormy Daniels debacle scenario with the lawyer. Now he's under investigation. But let's look at Korea first.
Yeah, the situation with Korea is absolutely amazing. And Trump actually gave a speech yesterday in Indiana where he was talking about how everybody was yelling just a few months ago, oh my God, he's going to get us into a nuclear war with Korea. And now he's gotten them to release prisoners. They've got a summit on the table. And North Korea has publicly stated that they are interested in discussing denuclearization.
Yes. Okay. So Obama got a Nobel Prize for showing up. And Trump, releases with no conditions, gets 3 hostages released, and Chucky Schumer has a problem with that. Please explain that to me, Dr. Lopkin.
I can't explain. Richard Blumenthal also came out complaining that, he has no strategy, he has no plan. Clearly he has a plan because things are working.
What is Richard Blumenthal? What possible qualification does Dick Blumenthal have about foreign policy? What is he? What has he ever done? First of all, what has he ever done for Connecticut?
He has done nothing. He has no foreign policy experience. He lied about his service in Vietnam.
Which, by the way, speaking of the Republican Party, the incompetent Republican Party in Connecticut, he was a very vulnerable candidate. Now, once you get in, you're in. Who do they have? Linda McMahon, the only person, again, that could lose to him, Dick Blumenthal, correct?
Well, the problem with the Republican Party in Connecticut is that they always give the nomination to someone they feel can bring a lot of money. That's it. That's
True.
The only qualification they look for.
Yeah, she bought her way in. She lost to Dick Blumenthal stage 1. Stage 2, she loses to Murphy, who was, a marginal. Come on. Yeah. Murphy, not exactly a Mensa candidate. I think he was foreclosed on a house. Again, another do-nothing senator that just talks about guns, and I don't even know what he's talking about, really.
No, I'm not even sure they know what they're talking about.
Yes. So the real question about Korea is, are the resistance movement, a la the left, the Democratic Party, so indoctrinated with resisting and preventing Trump to have any kind of a victory that he could have dollar bills, $100 bills, fall from the sky, and that would be causing pollution? I mean, what is Crying Chuck, which, by the way, Trump is a master brander. Whenever I think of him, that's what I think of, Crying Chuck.
Yep.
And when he talks about he needed motivation or leadership training, I mean, the guy looks like a college professor. I mean, just stop it. He has no leadership ability, which I think is amazing. But he was criticizing Trump because I don't even know what he was talking about. I really don't even know.
None of these Democrats have any leadership ability. That's why you're starting to see pundits who absolutely hate Trump go on TV and say, well, we're only going to have to deal with him for 6 years, because they know they've got nobody who's going to be able to beat him in the election. And they're starting to realize that this impeachment thing is complete bull, and they're not going to be able to pull it off.
Okay, speaking of this impeachment, how does it happen that this is allowed to go on? I think it's bizarre. I think it's ridiculous. And the last tidbit is Stormy. Who's funding this situation, and how does it allow to go on?
Yeah, I don't know who's funding Stormy Daniels' lawyer. He's currently under investigation by the California Bar Association for tax fraud. But
yes,
somebody is feeding him information, and not necessarily good information, because he released a quote-unquote dossier on Michael Cohen, only it turned out he had information on several different people named Michael Cohen that he just all attributed to Trump's lawyer.
Well, it seems to me that this scenario is more from a porn star, pay for silence, which was well before the election or whatever. Even if it was, that's another issue. To now he gets on CNN, unfiltered, with no checking of how he got this information, and basically thought of as a superhero, unvetted. And I just wonder. I think a good investigation should be done in who's funding him, because he's not doing it for free. I believe he's been funding by sources. He was propped up in terms of what leveraged him or allowed him to become in the limelight, in the media, was Stormy Daniels. And I think then the left and people like Soros started funding him, because now, well, he can say anything. Once he's on that CNN, once he's on MSNBC, now he's a mouthpiece to say whatever we feed him. He's not being fed that. It's not his own investigation. That's crazy.
No, he's not doing the investigation. Somebody's definitely funding him, but they're definitely channeling the information to him. I honestly believe that when he started this, the entire thing was just to get Stormy Daniels publicity. Then he found he liked the spotlight, because now he's
others liked
there.
What he had to say, because
yes,
as you were saying, that the investigation over Trump is piddling out. So now we need to continue to gin up something. He's the only vehicle we have left at this particular point in time.
That's it. And I honestly think they just want him to make as much noise as possible going into the November elections, so that the Democrats can try to pick up some seats.
Okay, well, let's talk about it as we close. Isn't it really very indicative of what's happening to the left or on the left that you say something on college campuses, you're shut down? And if you're duly elected but they don't like you, what do? Try to shut you down, either through a stupid, ridiculous imagine impeachment, Dr. Lopkin. That is like the scenario of last resort, the vehicle of last resort. And they would use it on Trump for Stormy. If the bar gets that low, be careful what you wish for, because then when a Democrat gets in, we'll impeach him or her because I don't know what, they didn't pay a parking ticket.
What I find really funny is that I don't think most of the folks on the left understand what impeachment is. Impeachment is not a conviction. It's just the first step in a legal process. Even if Trump gets impeached, if he is not convicted of anything by the time his term is up, even under impeachment, he can run for re-election.
Yeah, but it severely cripples, and it crippled Clinton, which I didn't agree with.
No, I didn't. I don't think it crippled Clinton at all.
Oh, I think it kind of did. It didn't cripple him, but it certainly put the kibosh on his second term in terms of any initiatives. It crippled him even to the fact that I believe that his impeachment resulted in Gore's not getting in because it was such a close election. But Clinton was so tainted that Gore didn't want him to run with him or campaign for him, I should say. Well, anyway, I think it was an interesting discussion, and I think there's some really interesting things going on. I think the last thing I want to leave you with, Dr. Lopkin, is I want your assessment, your opinion is, if something positive comes out of Korea, what happens then? I mean, does it get to a point that the press has to and the left just has to admit that something good happened?
They're going to have to. If they actually manage, I mean, remember, the Korean War never ended.
Yeah, it's been going on for 70 years.
It's been going on for 70 years. If he manages to negotiate a lasting peace, ending the Korean War after 70 years, and starting the denuclearization of North Korea, they have to give it to him. They have to admit that he's doing something right, because Obama could never pull that off.
No, Obama couldn't pull off, getting the Liberty Bell out of Philadelphia. I mean, please, let's be honest. Well, Dr. Lopkin, and let me one other question before we conclude this edition of Carnivore Bites. Does it ensure Trump or at least the midterms, a reversal of the so-called blue wave? I think it does. If he's seen,
I don't know if it ensures it, but it certainly gives it a push.
Very good. Well, Dr. Lopkin, that concludes another edition of Carnivore Bites. We'll reconnect next week and review issues of the week.
You've been listening to Carnivore Radio's podcast. You can catch us here every week. Carnivore Radio is part of the Xvadio podcast network. You can listen to the podcast at blogtalkradio.com/Xvadio. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can listen to us live every Friday at 4 o'clock on WESU 88.1 Middletown, Connecticut. You can also catch us online at wesufm.org. We look forward to hearing from you and see you next week.